25, I'm Mayor Malcolm Joe. We'll go around the table here.
Councilmember Longworth. Councilmember Ryan Deeds.
City Clerk Annette Rice.
Councilmember Mark Jackson.
Education President Frank Morano.
Board Sutler, Superintendent.
Doug Oak, Board Member.
Member, Billy Supervisor.
Secretary Smith, Board of Education. Board of Education members, Joe Seagull.
Dr. House, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I have to call our meeting to order as well.
I'm sorry?
If you don't mind, I have to call our meeting to order as well. Sure. Then call to order the Harrison County Board of Education special meeting for 6/26/25, Clarksburg City Council. All right.
So council and. I just started a presentation on the land use agency. It's relatively new in the city. There's other cities in West Virginia that have LRAs that were brought forward by Councilmember Wayne. And I thought it'd just be a good introduction to how the LRA works. And then I actually have another presentation, and then I'll pass it back on to the mayor and the board president to have a discussion about that. So the LRA, what is a land? What is a land use agency? So it's a specialized government entity under Article 181 of the Clarksburg City Code. It addresses vacant, abandoned, and tax delinquent properties, and it's authorized under the West Virginia Code, Chapter 31. And its purpose is to turn problem properties into community assets. Why is the LRA important? It creates opportunity for the community to be involved in all of its types of stakeholders. It reduces blight and safety hazard. It protects neighborhood and business property values. It helps to prevent crime. It reduces use and costs. So it's come from a number of different ways now, which was more How does the LRA acquire these properties? So we can do it through, we have a number of ways we can do it. This is tax sale acquisition. So for some, if they're under a certain amount, we have right of first refusal at tax sale. And we can also acquire unsold properties post-sale. For strategic purposes, to complete development sites and address urgent community concerns, and donations from banks, states, individuals unable to maintain property, other organizations and individuals, and we're holding all these money for individuals. Next, what does the LRA do with these properties? So we like to secure and maintain them once they're in our possession. Sometimes residents will give us dilapidated homes and we will put those on our demolition list and tear down. And then we'll find another use for them to repurpose. And we like to eliminate those safety hazards once we have them. For certain buildings, there'll be environmental and structural evaluations completed. And we like to look at the neighborhood where these buildings are and align with market needs. There's some interim uses as well. So if we do take down a house, sometimes you can do pocket parks, community gardens. Up on a corner, we're looking at actually facilitating that property to increase parking for a multi-unit home. Redevelopment and disposition, used for sales, partnerships, sidewalk programs, and not-for-profit transfers. What are the LRA powers and capabilities? So we have the legal authorities in LRA to sue, clear titles, and file liens. We can borrow funds, issue bonds, and form partnerships. We can move forward with rehabilitation, demolition, and improvement of properties. And we like to work with other municipalities, developers, nonprofits, and individuals on the level. What are the benefits to Clarksburg? It creates neighborhood stabilization. It helps protect property values. It helps enhance community development. It also helps to make our neighborhood safer, provides community amenities, and helps increase tax revenues, depending on the fair. Looking forward, so we'd like to take a proactive and strategic approach when looking for options for the LRA. We want to focus on stability, growth, and opportunity. Continued community support from the public and other entities is essential. We want to create partnerships with our stakeholders. And we feel that the LRA will transform our challenges in Clarksburg into a thriving, robust community for our city. Is there any questions on what the LRA is?
Yeah, can you explain this to the audience, like what the process is, tax sale process? process in acquiring property and how long you have to wait?
Sure. So when there's a tax sale, there's some properties that we have first right, if we get those right away. When they're above a certain threshold, we bid on them, we're awarded them, but the owner has 120 days to redeem those properties, so it can actually take quite a long time to get those properties put into the LRA. We're just starting to see some movement into our LRA now to about 14 properties altogether, 11 to 14 properties altogether.
And how many of these 11 to 14, are the 11 to 14 properties, are they now in our possession to be able to market, or are they still?
They're on the agenda tonight, 7 of them. For first reading, everything has to be done through the ordinance. So it will take 2 readings of the ordinance and then we'll go for further discussion to the LRA. However, council did do the YMCA earlier this year, and that council donated that back to the YMCA as a municipal event.
And just one more question, if you're versed in it, how does, this for the audience, how does the LRA, what are the benefits of the LRA when it collaborates with our Harrison County, Bill West Virginia district? We have now the EDC.
So the Bill West Virginia is a program that was developed by the state for residential home builders. It's, you have to make a certain cap of a certain number of units or a certain amount of money, I believe it's $2 million, but all those properties don't have to be in a row. So if a developer came and found 12 lots, residential lots in the city of Clarksburg, they could go and buy those and put together a proposal to go to the state. And as long as the cost of building those homes is over $2 million, there's tax advantages to doing that. And a lot of cities actually revitalize their cities.
And our LRA, with our properties, could play a vital role into enticing developers.
That's our goal.
to get cheaper.
Yes.
Now, in this situation, any property that would come from the Board of Education would not be subject to a waiting.
It would not.
Then the process would be, they would move it to the city council would then move it to the LRA.
That is correct. I'm not even sure, Richard, can the Board of Education be it directly to the LRA, or does, in this situation, does it have to be filtered through the city?
My understanding is they can do it directly, but also in communications, I think their council, and I haven't spoken with their council, him or her, I'm not sure, wanted to go to the city first, so it's totally comfortable to do it. It doesn't matter from the city's perspective.
So that would be a Board of Education decision. What the Board of Education feels.
What type of properties, what type of properties are residential and business properties? Do you have any other government properties?
We have our old City Hall lot, that sits in the LRA. That was transferred from council to the LRA earlier this year or end of 2024 as well. It hasn't been around that long, so we're continuing to move properties into there. But on our agenda tonight, if you go down Main Street to Monticello, the old Monticello there in the apartment, those are on the list to be transferred into the LRA today.
And do you have any other municipality, or other government properties? I'm asking for specifically.
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. Most of our properties sit in the city right now. We have an extensive list, but not to my knowledge.
And just into this, but I believe there's nothing that is any entity that donates the property on transfers it to the LRA. They are allowed to put certain restrictions onto the property and also a reverser into the deed to go back to them if nothing is done.
That is correct. So we have done that with a couple of the properties, one in particular that we're working on. And they have 36 months to see significant progress, 50% rehabilitation. And if that doesn't happen, then it comes back to the LRA. So you can put a lot, whatever conditions that you want on that type of agreement moving forward. I have another presentation as well, and some of the questions will be answered from that. If both boards are okay with me doing that, and then if more questions after that, I'll pass this around when I get them in a second. Jen, how do I get back to the meeting?
Look at you. I'm all proud of you.
So this is our partnership proposal between the city of Clarksburg and the Clarksburg Board of Education. So the properties that we put on here for discussion are Washington Early Middle School, Northfield Elementary, and Highfield. And this is just to give some information of what's happened to buildings in the city. Please don't take this as we think the school division's done anything, the public's done anything, it's just for information purposes of why we're so focused on making sure that we rehabilitate buildings and that. So vacant buildings initially remain secure, but gradually deteriorate through weathering and minor maintenance issues. There can be early signs of vandalism when there's vacancy such as broken windows and graffiti, and this attracts further trespassing and damage. As this neglect continues, major systems fail, weak plumbing breaks, and electrical systems deteriorate. Structural integrity declines over time, often ending in fire or catastrophic collapses. I mean, I think we just saw, everybody probably saw on the news, there was a third floor collapse in the building in Princeton, that was something that's The broken window theory and community impact. So the broken window theory, introduced in 1982, shows how visible signs of disorder can trigger a cycle of escalating vandalism and crime. Initial neglect, such as broken windows, graffiti, and overgrown vegetation signals a lack of oversight and invites further illegal activity. This downward spiral of deterioration often spreads from one property to the surrounding areas, worsening neighborhood conditions. Neighboring property values can decline by up to 15 to 20% that are adjacent to visibly abandoned buildings, negatively impacting homeowner equity. Police calls increase near vacant properties as they attract illicit activities and trespassing. The cycle of deterioration diminishes community crime and safety, it harms neighborhood's reputation, and deters potential investment. There's a couple of cautionary examples here. So there was fires in a couple of schools, that was unfortunate. And our biggest concern, not only with the remediation and the cleanup, because a lot of the older buildings in our city have asbestos and lead, but our firefighters, and we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to protect our employees. So emergency response costs at abandoned schools require significant resources, including multiple fire departments, police, emergency management, and this diverts from other community needs. Environmental remediation can be costly because we are not allowed to put those in our own sites at our public works. We have to dump those properly, and it's incredibly expensive. The site stabilization and monitoring, so we have to tear those down. We want to make sure everything's put back to grade, and that is also expensive. Some of the costs when we looked online typically range between $300,000 to $500,000 for larger buildings. There's public safety concerns. I'll just run over these quickly. So there's fire hazards, structural hazards. On the corner, we broke into our downtown steel Genesis building, and it was very, very unsafe. Even though we had townhouse people going in there, we're concerned about everybody's safety. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. Those buildings can help perpetuate crime and nuisance activities, and it's a liability exposure. Whoever owns them, even if you have insurance, if your insurance go up and you have other costs that come with that. Our partnership advantage with the LRA, with the Board of Education. So we believe our mission aligns with your interest to ensure these buildings continue to serve communities. They may not be utilized for educating anymore, but they can still be a great community asset that we can work together and partner on. There's access to funding sources that are unavailable to private developers or the Board of Education, and these include some of them include brownfield grants, historic preservation tax credits, and economic development incentives. These funding sources can significantly reduce rehabilitation costs. We want to focus long-term sustainability, considering both initial redevelopment and ongoing operational viability. And redevelopment honors the educational legacy while meeting contemporary community needs as well. Thank you for this opportunity. We're both boards to get together. It's been awesome for our staff to work on this, so we're increasing the number of conversations. I'll answer whatever questions I need to.
I have a logistical question. So this is a separate agency or is it under the purview of the city?
It has its own board, just like our sanitary board. So the sanitary board has its own budget and runs, the board is under the city, but it runs independently from the city. It has a representative from council on the sanitary board, but it's independent of council.
So what you just explained, the setup of the board, there are 5 members, that kind of thing.
Yes. 5 members for the land use agency, and then a couple advisory staff members help to come up with ideas of the neighborhood buildings or what's the best use, what's going to fit, what's going to have good economic impact, all those type of discussions happen.
So I had a few questions, with this proposal here. So from the city standpoint, what's our plan if say that LRA acquires these buildings? Is there already people, developers that are interested?
We talked to a couple of developers who would also actively market some of the buildings. We want to be very particular and intentional with what happens to the buildings. We want to revitalize the city, we want to always consider it's a benefit to the city and the Board of Education and the council to have these buildings not stay vacant and have a lifestyle practice in them.
And I agree. I have a couple of questions just for Board of Education representatives. So my first question is the utilities. So to keep these buildings, I guess, climate controlled, how much does that usually run? Like, let's just say, like in the summer, where there's not, where you don't have students or whatever, how much does that usually run? If you know that question.
If I can interrupt, you're right.
We have so many properties, that I would.
It's going to be different too, because the size of the buildings are like.
And do that, yes. And my next question is, when you submitted the closure document to the SBA, what were some of the issues that were cited on these buildings?
For the, like the closure,
Of
course, probably the main one was the age of the building, and it was going to cost us more to renovate that to get it up to standard than it would be to go to a different building that was newer. So it's just getting them upgraded to the current standards. And when renovations cost more than it does to move the building or build a new one in some cases, then it becomes, yeah.
And
And
why-
you know, yeah, well, yeah. Never.
Correct.
Yeah, structure.
Yeah.
So if I may, what's the Board of Education's plans for the buildings, the height field of the buildings?
So currently, I think that's why we're here. We're here to open up discussion to see what might be beneficial or could be beneficial.
Yeah, but before the city showed interest in it, what they're doing plans.
Well, there's only a few things we can do with the buildings, and what we've done previously in the past is.
State laws are very, very specific on what they can do, which is why I think the city, we're blessed to be in a position that we did create the LRA. Because one of the things the LRA can do is, that the city can't, is we can use that building and find a developer for the building specifically for what we would like it to be, and just go with one person or another person, whereas the city kind of doesn't have the option to do that. The city can't just say, you've done a great building in the past, we'd like you to do it again, we'll give it to you. The city's not allowed to do that. We're in the same position as the Board of Education, we would just have to auction it off, and then you don't know what happens to the building.
So can I ask this question? If there would be a benefit to giving it to the cities, would the board have any input on what could be done?
The board can have input and discussions. I think once it goes to the LRA, the ultimate decision would be the LRA, but what I would tell you in the agreement itself, because I had this discussion with Councilmember Dees. If there's something specifically that the Board of Education is okay with, but it's not ideal. So I'm going to be very candid. If it's a charter school or a private school, and rather than the building sit vacant, that would be sort of the last use. You can give the LRA 36 months for something else, and then if nothing happens in that 36 months without effort that can be quantified, then we can come back and say, you know, if nothing has happened, we just simply can't find somebody to take over the building, to renovate the building, we have a school interested, so it doesn't remain vacant, and we move forward with the school. So those conditions can be put in an agreement.
And I would welcome that discussion with the Board of Education. You know, I think as, as council members, we're also kind of, our hands are tied, right? And that's the discussion anytime that there's a high profile property, and it was the meeting before I was sworn in when you talked about the old city hall lot. But I was here, and there was a lot of hand wringing about, if it goes to the LRA, it is out of the hands of the elected council members. And so, I would encourage you to, be involved as possible, but help guide the staff. I think Tiffany and Dr. Nicholson are doing a great job with economic development, and have been very responsive. And so, I think that there's a lot of benefit, and we'll be able to work well with you to find something that benefits.
I think this falls on my question about the restrictions, and I think if that would be the concern to the board, to use Tiffany's came terms, the private school, the charter school, I think that's one of the restrictions you put in there. That's not a viable option. For obvious reasons. And then obviously, if nothing's done with it, it's certainly not time, it goes back.
How do you recap on the circumstances broadly into this? Who were the owners? They were private owners, so they weren't owned by the Board of Education, they weren't owned by the city, or any industry, auction law. Well, it seems like there's been some successes, though, like Board of School, right?
I'll send you that.
Well, I mean, that's, I guess, an example of how they moved that well.
Yeah.
But if I'm correct, and I don't know the history of that school, I'm going to take something all but it was, I believe that was actually due indeed to be converted by the city for more grade school. I believe it's happened like that. But if that was sold, I believe it's
So this type of partnership is not unexplored. We have done it with success before.
Is there something, and I don't know if council would be amenable to this or not, but worth discussion. If there would be another room, we could push the buildings to the LRA, and council would in turn sell them, or the LRA would sell them. Would there be any monetary compensation to come back?
Would that be? Chances are, with the renovations that I do know exist, it probably would be a very high price tag to them because of just the size of the buildings. And I think it actually requires some significant work. But we can still put that if there is a price, then if whatever the council and whatever education is, whatever you think that percentage split should be, absolutely.
So has this LRA already been, obviously already been?
Yes.
Who are the members?
So there's James Snyder from Mary Hunt, Kim, our director of finance, myself, and Jason, our project director, and Wayne, you're the council rep as well, and then Dr. Nicholson serves as an advisory role within that committee as well.
You mentioned that there's drainage problem. How are you aware of that? I feel.
We've had people come and talk to our code about that. That there's a gentleman who's below the field, and he's asked us to fix it quite a bit.
Is that specific?
Sometimes people don't understand everybody's jurisdictions. They just assume that they just road work, we do the road work, it's drainage. It's our job to do the drainage.
He's assuming that's what's going on.
I think there's been some assessments on it, but I don't know that for sure, but that's what I've been told.
One of the things I would like to do is I think we need to get an assessed value of this. And that's just my opinion. The reason I say that is because I think that and I'd like to get a little bit from more people. And there might be some form of state code that limits the donations to municipalities. You sure?
Are you doing assessed value or appraised value?
Appraised value, excuse me. It's appraised value. I do want to get that out there. Because I'd like to follow the one that code because I was.
We'll get that to the board.
Said otherwise.
And just out of curiosity, I've heard for a couple of years now, is there any kind of fine print on the deed that restricts it from being used as anything other than an for educational purposes for Highfield?
No, and the deed on the land may not, but our planning and zoning would limit what can be done on those fields.
Is planning, we could change zoning, correct?
It would have to be approved through council, and it would have to be approved through the planning and zoning committee.
So what thought did you have to the original clause? It's 36 months. It goes back to the board.
Yeah.
Who in that 36-month time period will keep up on the buildings?
We would be responsible for that. And those standards would be set. My suggestion to the council and the board would be, come and meet again in a couple of weeks and have a draft for everybody to look at and discuss, and get feedback on that agreement, would be my suggestion.
Has anyone approached you about doing what they want to do with Highfield? Is there any interest there?
Yeah, so I actually have some drafts, past these drafts, so we were given this by WYK. I don't know the year this was done, and it's not exact, but he just took some ideas and put it together for us. So what we're envisioning this would be, what sports ball game is it?
Soccer and football.
Football.
Sports ball.
Good luck. America.
You gotta know, folks, she's from Canada. All of her is,
Well, so the question is, when the football football field be 110 yards long, right?
And these are just very, initial documents, however, this would be a community asset, which I think, and what it does is it builds on, the city, it builds on what Bridgeport has, it fills a gap of what they don't have, but what we hear the community wants to have. And it's a community asset for everybody. The red or rusty type line there, that's a pump track, so that's, we have a grant for that already. So it would be a great location to put that for kids to ride their mountain bikes.
What kind of track is it called?
The little ones.
Could be in there.
Oh, okay. So not like a mountain bike trail?
We can do both.
Oh,
There's 2 tracks.
okay.
Sorry, I'm doing my best here. But that's just sort of the overarching look of what it could be. And this in particular, would be a great, ideas from the schools of where you see a deficit, what would you like to also incorporate on these fields? And maybe a certain percentage of time to the schools for what they need as well. So I think all that could be put into an agreement, moving forward and be beneficial to the city, the county, and the school division, and all the kids that you guys have.
As a former soccer mom, we need soccer fields.
We do.
Yeah, it's nice that they're in City Park, but they really tearing up the grass. And you trying to do something there, rent a shelter during soccer season, really proud. So, big parking lot.
And has anyone expressed any?
This would be something the city would take on, so we can apply for state and federal grants. But we already had the grant for the contract, and work with, those other levels of government. And we looked at some philanthropic, grants as well, as long as it has certain components for communities and demographics that are underserved, there's opportunities for private funding as well. So we started to look at those and put this all into just a high level plan, how we move it forward. It can also be phased, so it doesn't have to be all at once. We could say, the biggest thing I see is the soccer field and parking, let's start with that. And then in 2 years, we'll stack our funding and we'll do the second phase with the others, field and go from there.
So if this comes to fruition, would it be under the city or Parks and Rec?
It can be either, and that would be something we would have to discuss. If we're gonna have an agreement with the Board of Education for a time, the city would have to come up with an agreement for Parks and Rec and agree with the Board of Education, because I would hesitate to say we will pass the time, we sign the agreements for time sharing of the space.
Clarksburg needs this, we need this. This is the community. Utilize that property down there, and this is, with the, and I've said this for a couple of years, the Waldo Hotel, the old Waldo building is now under contract. And I have said this for years, it's going to jumpstart the city. Years ago, we tossed up between putting in a boutique hotel or renovating the Robinson Grand. We decided to do the Robinson Grand and spend a whole month. So, I think Waldo coming to town, renovated, I think, about this 12 months.
And, piggyback on what he just said, back in, I believe it was right around 82, somewhere 82 to 85, we missed a great opportunity when we did put that civic center in up there. Let's not be that group that misses out on another great opportunity. This is our opportunity. We talk a lot about what our young people do in our community, the things that they get into, but we don't offer them anything to do that's productive. Let's make sure that we put some things out there that are kid-type things, because if we don't have kid-type things for our young people to do, they're going to start getting into adult-type things. We already see that out there we see what it's leading us into. So, this is something that could really, move us in a great direction.
Speaking of 1985, what was the south side field during big flood? Good water. You remember?
That's a long way.
I mean, it's like right here on the map, isn't it? I don't know, just thought. It was dry, I trust it.
Mr. Dean, yes, the football field. And I'm asking because you were thinking this was a large parking lot.
It is.
Depending on what, group was using this
Sure.
as games, that isn't enough parking spot, but I'm just saying.
Well,
High school, that probably would be, I don't.
yeah, and so I understand what you're saying, I remember the days of gravel height field and, everybody. Pardon me? Can't have any more?
Still is.
It still is.
Well, that's where I went to high school football games, middle school football games, all that stuff. And, the whole neighborhood became a parking lot, right? Like overflow and that kind of stuff. And looking at this, I do agree that a rec center's really, or a recreational complex like this is needed. When I look at the football field, we've got the football field at Robert C. Byrd, which is in pretty good shape. It's good enough that Wembley's coming up to play a Division II college game in October. And so, maybe that's another soccer field. I know we might not want to completely shut off the opportunity of another football field. But, I don't know. Just looking at this, first thought is it's great, but definitely want to sit with it a little bit.
They have a little bit of parking up there on the right.
Yeah, I was thinking about the illumination.
Yeah, no. I guess you could ride your bike in, right? Could just
around with your horse.
take the bike trail in there. How many parking spots does Robert C. Byrd have?
About 400. Well, that parking lot, on that big parking lot, I don't think it's got 400 spots. Does it?
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Well, and keep in mind too, is this design etched in stone or,
No.
so then basically, if parking is the issue, we have the flexibility, to make, any kind of adjustments, that we can take care of that issue. But, just looking at the bike trail, I'm here, right here, there. But, some things can be moved around and, adjusted so that we can actually make this happen.
Is this, and again, we're all just sitting with it for the first time. Is this something that the board is comfortable with as a possible option for the height field?
Personally, I can't speak to the rest of them.
Sure, yeah.
I do want to digest a lot of information from the, things look nice. We talk about things. I think that my feeling on the matter is, if there's an opportunity to work together, we investigate that opportunity. We look to see if there's a way that we can participate. I don't think anybody, simply state wants to see buildings that are like out of use. But review and digestion session on it. See what else. Thanks, well, very nice.
I'm not only a school board member, I'm a Clarksburg resident, except for the 2 years I was overseas and getting my 4-year college degree. My first one. I've lived here my whole life. And, Dan has been a board member too.
Jerry fell
You know, the more we can work together and attract people to Harrison County in general, Clarksburg in particular, it's better for everyone, every single citizen, every single student, all our communities. We're definitely open to work.
Mr. Hubble, haven't heard from you, sir.
A wise man once told me that a steel tongue makes a wise head. So that was my 99-year-old grandfather. So I have my opinions, I've stated my opinions, and just listening, and then when the time comes, put all the pieces together, come up with a plan or no plan. So just wait and see what all comes down the path.
My goal was just to get us all there for time, or just to see, what it was, possibilities. So I'm going to get that, that's the first.
I have a question in relation to the school buildings. We have to look at those school buildings and kind of look at another school up in Fairmont. Have you rehab there with residential, nice residential school. But speaking of that, with the LRA, because I heard before, say if this did come to fruition and the Board of Education was open to, having these properties transferred to the LRA, what I heard is that if that does go to a property developer and it's sold, well, whatever, in the agreement, there is some monetary, gain that we get from that. The school board would probably want to have a part of that too. My question is, because I mainly work on versed on the tax element of the LRA, not necessarily the transfer of buildings. Is that something, within state code that can happen if say this comes to fruition and a developer does, there's an agreement where a developer does access to the property and there's a cost to that. Is that something where the city and the Board of Education could recoup some of that, I wouldn't say recoup, but make a profit off of that? Because from what I understand, the LRA, we can only, on tax sale things, we only can sell it for what we got in.
Yeah, I mean, so, the good example would be when the County Board of Education gave not the Dutch, what's the on the property? Okay, when they gave Morgan Grade School to the city, there's a rider on there that said that, if the city conveyed the property within a certain period of time and sold it, then it had to split the money with the Board of Education. We were well beyond that time for it to matter. For the reason we can't have a similar rider on here. I mean, all these things we're talking about are things that are easily dealt with in the conveyance documents, whatever is agreement.
And we can do that through land use.
Absolutely, because the Board of Education knows the property, and I don't think there's anything in the code that says they can't do certain restrictions. So, I mean, I guess I want to talk to I was going to ask you who your general counsel is. I'd like to get some, if you don't mind me talking to him or her. That's fine, but I think that's one of the first things to think through is these issues and see if we both agree on those from our perspectives. You go from there. That's kind of my thought process. But I think these are all doable things. The concerns everybody has, I don't think they're easily looked at somehow.
Probably the middle property in Fairmont, kind of mirrors what's happening over in middle school right now. And actually,
And there's also a great example in Clarksburg. They took an elementary school and turned it into residential property, and it's beautiful. And, you know, I live in Northview, and I live a walk from the school, and, you know, I would love to see, at the very least, additional residential property there, or some kind of mix of residential, communal, asset there, because you know, we're kind of, and, you know, Mike also has a vested interest in this, and, you know, Northview is still, it's a large neighborhood, and right now, you only have 2 real meeting centers that could host a number of people, and that's the gym at St. James, and that's Northview Elementary School. And so, you know, I think that for me, I you know, I represent the whole city, but, you know, I want to make sure that Northview gets its due to this, because, you know, the Highfield project is very flashy, it's very important. WI is a big building. I think being in the city center, it has a lot of benefits to its location. But, you know, I think that redevelopment of Northview School really could lead to the revitalization of that neighborhood. And I think if we leave it empty, I don't want to do more, but I don't want to take a page out of Councilman Hyman's book here, but, you know, it would be detrimental, we'll say.
I can't imagine Northview Elementary or even WI being anything but residential property after what we guys decided. I mean, being in Northview myself, you're not gonna see a lot of commercial desire anymore. You know, I can't see anything but like wireless. But, you know, WI maybe has, you know, more opportunity to, you know.
And I strongly believe too that, you know, especially with the Northview Elementary property, turning that into residential, we talked about the Bill of West Virginia legislation that was passed, and, you know, how that's a significant game changer for residential development. I mean, just the incentives that it provides to, you know, to developers that want to redevelop properties of that magnitude, you know, for residential. I mean, we're looking, you know, based on personal property taxes, we're looking at, you know, waiving of the sales tax and construction costs. You know, these are significant incentives, no matter how this goes, whether it goes in the LRA or the Board of Education decides, you know, to keep the properties, and auction them off. I think, you know, I truly believe that that's something that we should really be working, even with the Harrison County EDC and Amy Wilson on, but she was spearhead getting that designation for Harrison County. I think that's something, especially for the Northview Elementary, you know, that could be a really big game changer as a residential property.
So when it comes to IPO, it's really not going to be the LRA. It would actually, the city, like you're saying. Well,
This can be done through the LRA.
and what would be the advantage of going to the LRA?
for you folks. Because when it comes down.
For Highfield specifically?
I don't think it's in the vans. I think on Height Field, I think that's one where the city would take on the funding of the project in its entirety. And then immediately upon completion, transfer to the park board, let them operate it as the recreation facility. And then they would have the opportunity to partner with city groups for the bridge. Same as the use as an overflow for events coming in, soccer space, baseball. I mean, everything's needed. It's underbuilt. So to be able to partner with them, utilize not only Height Field as an overflow, but then you can use, with the permission of the board, Bird, Liberty Middle now, a great school to talk with that field. So you can really get synergy of everybody working together, using the fields, overflows for large events. I mean, there's the possibility of 1,600 kids, young adults coming in, multiply that by 2 parents, grandparents, whatever, and you're filling the hotels, you're filling the restaurants, gas, the economic impact is there. It's pulling in the same direction.
For my very basic understanding of this, I think that the advantage of us putting something into the LRA is if we're looking for outside investment. If this is a project that we decide, if everybody comes to the table and says, yes, Highfield redevelopment is something that we would like the city to do, then we would have to secure that funding and it would stay in our control. But the school buildings, I think the intention is for those to go to the LRA because those are not things that we would fund ourselves.
And quite frankly, to me, I think personally, from the city standpoint, to develop this, we have the sales tax fund, and that is specifically for projects like this. And I don't want to vote here on that, but I think that's another project that we could dedicate funds going to help do this. But again, I think with the asset of the property being brought into the city with the partnership with the school board, I think we bring the county in as well. I think the county commission needs to be involved in something like this. This is the county seat, I think this is something they need to be involved in as well. From a financial aspect of it, and even from the planning aspect, to get their input in the community. But clearly, they need to be involved as well. And financially, I don't think it's something out of the realm over a 30-year bond that's financing the sales tax fund. And it's something to do.
Following up on that, Councilman Powell is correct. To me, it's unclear now which entity would actually own Highfield. You would determine that based upon your funding stream. LRA, Building Commission, Board of Parks, because as we know, the city can't carry debt itself. So it's why the Bronx grant is very weird ownership structure. At the end of the day, the city funds it, but the Bronx grant is a weird ownership structure, how it works. So I don't think it really matters at the end of the day which entity holds it, because as again, Councilman now said, if you bond it, you're going to have it set up as a certain ownership. This can be tied up anyway. So that's another reason why I have LRA, because the LRA can take out debt, but that's going to be up to the bond council way down the line when you get that far.
Most likely bond.
Yeah, I think municipal building commission would probably hold the property. Bond outstanding.
I think the further measure myself is that you have to remember that the 9 of you folks, in a sense, are representing Clarksburg. We are representing the county, everybody in the county. So we have to bring it done to that, I think, also.
I don't disagree with you there, and I don't think I like what you said, but I do think in that respect, you are representing the citizens of Clarksburg with the asset in their community, in the heart of the community as well.
Well, that's why I said we represent the county.
No, I said I agree with you, I'm not discounting, but I think in this respect, I'm not so sure somebody in Wolf Summit or down in South Harrison, Lost Creek, West Milford, I think it will still benefit everybody in the county.
And, I
a rising tide lifts all boats. That, yeah. Yeah, he is. I got it from ChatGPT. But, you know, the stronger that Clarksburg is, the stronger the county is. That's the argument.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would just like to add in, you know, one of the things that we've been dealing with for a long time is our declining population. And part of that is because we don't have anything to keep our young people here. You know, if we can keep our young people here, that's not just going to benefit the city of Clarksburg. That's going to benefit our entire county. You know, then we have young people who want to stay in our county because we start to build things that they can do here instead of they have to move to another state. So, you know, we have to look down the road. How are we going to keep our young people here who want to raise families, things to do right here in our county, in our city?
Anyone else?
Yeah, one final thought. If you think about it, if economic development happens and people come to Clarksburg with that, is that also benefits the school system as well?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's something to put out there.
And even if they don't have kids, it grows the tax base. Sure.
Well, I'd like to thank the Board of Education.
Sorry. I just want to
Are
make
you
sure.
done yet? No. Obviously not.
Well, you're such a great speaker, Mr. Mayor, but I just want to make sure we have a plan of action for the next meeting.
Well,
Okay.
I was getting to that.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
I think these buckets for a raise. Anyway, I think that, you know, I don't know how you all want to do this, but, you know, your next Board of Education meeting or your executive session, we'd like to, you know, within the next month or so, get together again and, you know, iron some more of this out a little bit and see what you people or what you folks are thinking and go from there.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to suggest there's actually 5 Thursdays in July, and that's all I'm sort of doing for Thursday, just to come out with some more ideas.
That'd be the 31st.
Yeah, we have, you heard everything, recorded everything, so you send this to your legal, we'll have our legal, talk to your legal, our accounting consultant people, work and come up with something to at least present to the board.
Would we also want to be in a situation where we could go into executive?
Yeah, we will book it as a regular meeting. This was a work call session, so as I talked to a couple people, we can go into executive session. But if we book it as a regular council meeting, or if you would prefer to have a Board of Education, you can book it as a regular meeting, and we can have our council move over there and join you. Then we can go into executive session. One thing I would ask is we'll probably have a presentation. So if we do it here, it'll be easy for us to do that. But if you guys want to go back and forth, whatever works.
We have technology over here.
It's way better, it's way better. I'll vouch for it.
Todd's our expert.
How about dinner?
Yeah, I think that we could probably take this away and you know, maybe we can ask some stuff like it to get together. Put some dates together, if that's something that we all want to consider. Yeah, I thank you for this. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are here.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? All opposed? Carried.